All right, everybody. This is our last lesson for this week when we're talking about the Protestant Reformation as the Catholic Church becomes divided when the Protestants split. Now, the ultimate effect of the Reformation was war. You had a long time belief system of the Catholics instated in much of the people, royalty, and society of Europe that it took a lot of conflict in order to completely root it out, to finally make peace between the two groups. Now, the question is it truly peace between the Catholics and the Protestants? Ultimately, yes, in most places in the world, it is. In our country today, we have laws that prevent people from persecuting other people based upon their religion. That's the reason why in our government, because when the founding fathers split from England, they knew that religion had to be protected and that people needed the right to practice their own religion, provided they didn't hurt someone else. So that's the reason why in our country today we have peace among many different types of branches of religion. Um, Now, however, in some countries that was not the case. And the country that the United States ultimately split from, England or the United Kingdom, um, we split from them knowing that a king who mandates a religion is a very bad thing. And we talked about the troubles in Ireland and we listened to the song Zombie, originally written by Cranberries, by the way, not the more modern song that you guys are used to. That song was written as a tribute to the Cranberries after the lead singer's death, by the way. But I digress. Um, the uh, the fact that England, and when King Henry said, "I am the king and I am also the religious leader," and therefore, when you have a government that mandates a religion, it causes a lot of trouble in the society. And we'll see that trouble because of the troubles. Now, remember, kind of to go back, England flip flops between Protestant and Catholic rulers several times until King James, the one who wrote the version of the Bible that we're kind of used to, his daughter and her husband William of Orange, which really meant that he was the king of the Netherlands, um, get together and kick James out. Well, James was Catholic, his daughter was Protestant. She wanted power, and she became queen and her husband king. James went to Ireland because he wanted help from the Catholics. Okay, so again, Mary and William were both Protestants. William from the Netherlands married Mary, the daughter of the King of England, King James. Mary converted to Protestant after marrying William. Together, they took the throne from James, who was Catholic. Okay, James fled England and asked Ireland to back him up in a war of rebellion, promising Ireland they would become free from England. Ireland declared their support for the Catholic King James and prepared to rebel. Scotland, who was a Protestant country, openly allied with England, forming for the first time the United Kingdom. Now, if you look up here in the corner, you can kind of see the two flags. You have the flag of Scotland, the flag of England, and they put it together and they formed what was the first part of the United Kingdom flag. I'll show you the end result of that here in just a second. Before the Glorious Revolution, that's when Mary and William took over. Um, Ireland was devastated by the English War. Remember, this was the war in our last lesson where the Puritans took over, but were ultimately kicked out. Uh, but that left Ireland extremely weak. Uh, and you can see here the Glorious Revolution. was the English, Welsh, and Scottish Society in British Islands. They came together and they formed uh, the United Kingdom for the first time. William and Mary uh, make the English Bill of Rights, solidifying their rule. They knew they needed to have laws stating that King William and Mary were both king and queen, and they needed the people to love them since they just kind of took it over. So what they did was they came up with the English Bill of Rights, okay, which gave the people rights to vote. So the first time in England, the actual citizens had rights to vote, allowed Parliament, their Congress, to make laws and enforce laws, much kind of like our Congress does today. Our Congress makes the laws and the president enforces those. Um, Allowed Scotland and Wales and other Protestant people, people who weren't Catholic, to vote and join English politics. But the Catholics were not allowed. So that meant the Irish were not allowed because they were the ones who were still Catholic. Uh, and that was the last straw that broke the Jack's back. Jack, I mean a donkey. And Ireland openly rebelled underneath King James. You can see here, here's a picture of William of Orange and Mary accepting their crown. And you can see the gentleman right over here. He has a paper in his hand. That is the English Bill of Rights. Ireland is too weak to really put up much of a fight. William responds by sending his armies into Northern Ireland, in the region known as Ulster. The joint army of the Scots, English, and Wales are too much for the Irish to hold Northern Ireland. Um, so most of the Catholics in Northern Ireland flee to Southern Ireland, only leaving a very small population of Catholics left in Northern Ireland. After the Irish seek peace with William, due to many, many defeats, William allows the Scots to settle in Ulster, hoping that they would eventually spread into Ireland and push the Catholic Irish out completely. However, the Irish, they stood their ground by stopping the Protestant movements from going any further south. So you still had this population up here of Protestants in Northern Ireland, but down here in the south, you still had the old um, Catholic Irish. Now, Southern Ireland was still a part of the United Kingdom, but really not by choice. Due to the treaties and stuff with Williams, they gave up a lot of their rights. The Irish were treated as third-class citizens. They were looked down upon by the upper classes, upper English classes. The Irish were stereotyped as being uneducated, drunk, lazy, always fighting savages who believed in fairy magic. During the potato famine, which was a famine that attacked and killed much of the potato crops, which was the staple crop, the main crop in Ireland, Southern Ireland would receive very little help as millions starved. About 5 million people starved to death, while many more fled to the United States. If you guys have ever seen the movie, oh gosh, I forgot the name of it. Anyways, stars Leonardo DiCaprio, and it's about the 5 points in New York. Um, and that movie is about the Irish coming over into the United States. In Northern Ireland, however, the Protestants people received aid. They were treated as second-class citizens, and they were given food. However, the holdouts, the Catholics that still lived in Northern Ireland, did not, and they didn't fare very well. So if you looked here after this time period in about 1801, Ireland, which technically just Northern Ireland, completely openly states that they will join the United Kingdom. So now you have the combining of the England, the flag of England, the Scottish flag, and it made this flag here, and then they added the Irish flag, and now you have the current United Kingdom flag, which is called the, I believe, the Union Jack. Okay. Southern Ireland attempts a revolution. After the potato famine, the Irish tried to make a revolution in the fashion of the French Revolution or the United States Revolution, but did not have the support from outside countries and was squashed by the very powerful British Army. Um, Remember that the Americans had support from the French during their revolution, and then when the French had their revolution, the United States turned around and helped them. Hence the reason why we have the Statue of Liberty. As a gift from France for saying thank you for their help. Um, so those two countries and their revolutions against Britain and their own countries were successful. The Irish, they didn't have any help from anyone outside, so theirs was easily squashed by the powerful British Army. Throughout the rest of the 1800s, Ireland would push for what's called Home Rule, where they would rule themselves and not be underneath the king, but time and time again they would fail. And here is a picture of a standard, stereotypical um, Irishman. However, in 1966, due to World War One, uh, Great Britain fought Germany. So most of their army was out fighting the Germans in World War One. So the armies in Ireland were very weak. Before the war, the Irish sued 3 times for home rule with Parliament. Each time, Southern Ireland voted overwhelmingly amongst its population to break away from the UK. But the Irish didn't really have much of a vote with the Parliament, so each time the Parliament would reject their votes. So while the war was raging in France and Germany, the Irish took advantage of it. The British armies in Ireland were too weak to fight. So on Easter week, uh, a group of Irish volunteers and the Irish Citizen Army began open attacks against the British and declared their independence. Remember in the song, whenever it talks about another mother's breaking heart is taking over, when the violence caused silence, we must be mistaken. It is the same old theme since 1916. In your head, they are still fighting. Well, this Easter Rising is exactly what she was referencing in the song. Now, the next part of this song, um, in your head, they are still fighting with their tanks and their bombs and their bombs and their guns. In your head, they are dying. Refers to the actual troubles. Oh dear. This picture up here that doesn't show up is just the Irish Republic flag. I don't know why it couldn't load. But the Irish Republic, the war started in 1916, lasted all the way through 1921. The rebellion did, or the revolt, and finally the Irish were able. Southern Ireland was able to break away from England in 1922, becoming the Irish Republic. Now the Irish Catholics had their own government for the first time ever, but what about Northern Ireland? It stayed in the hands of the United Kingdom and with pro United Kingdom supporters and Protestant leaders. So the Catholics did not have, again, very much rights in Northern England, or Northern Ireland, which was controlled by England. Um, and so the Northern Irish Catholics still had no rights or home rule. The Troubles, okay? The Irish Republican Army, or the IRA, wanted to free Northern Catholics from the control of the Union Protestant governments. The Unionists, the ones who wanted to be part of the United Kingdom. The IRA would attack and bomb Unionist areas and communities, kind of as a way of terrorism, basically. The Unionists, in order to prevent this, would make laws that dealt harshly with all Catholics, regardless if they were a part of the attacks or not. If you were Catholic and you were in the area of the bombing, you were guilty. Period. You know, the Unionists were treated better than the Catholics. They had better jobs, housing, different punishments between the Protestants and the Catholics. and the Unionists had the right to vote. The Catholics did not. In 1916, the Ireland Civil Rights Movement, as a way of mimicking Martin Luther King in the United States, held civil rights marches in protest of the injustice of the Unionist rule in Northern Ireland. They didn't want to split apart; they just wanted it to be fair between the Protestants and the Catholics. The Royal Ulster Constabulary, a state police force or anti-Catholic group, opposed the marches and would openly attack and beat the marchers, very similar to the way the Southern police forces in the South would attack the African Americans with clubs and dogs and fire hoses. They did the exact same things the RUC did against the Catholics who were protesting. So the IRA stepped in on the behalf of the Catholics to protect the marchers. They would openly carry weapons in the street. They would march alongside the Catholics as kind of like an armed guard. They didn't do any bombings or attacking at this time because they wanted to be very peaceful. But it was a clear sign to the uh, uh, Unionists that if you mess with us, we will fight back. Um, Finally, things kind of just got really out of hand one night when the the RUC uh, attacked a Catholic family in their own home, killing the father and leaving his two daughters, unconscious, requiring many months of hospitalization for recovery. The Loyalist group, those who supported uh, the Loyalists, sorry, was a new group that came along who disguised themselves as the IRA, and they would bomb the utility buildings in Belfast and other places, which left Belfast without power for many decades, making it look like it was the IRA's fault. They did a lot of terrorist attack, and they would pretend to be the IRA, but they really weren't. So the RUC and the RIRA go to open war in the streets. Both groups started to openly attack each other, killing many innocent women and children. It got so bad they would bomb stores, they would bomb buildings, whole neighborhoods would be caught on fire, whole shopping centers would be blown up. The British Army eventually had to step in order to keep peace, but they didn't trust the RUC or the IRA, so they didn't. It was a really bad position for the British Army to be in because they didn't know who to trust. But it really didn't have much of the effect. The bombings continued, and so did the burnings. Um, in the beginning, 10 people were killed, 745 were injured, including 154 who suffered gunshot wounds. 150 homes and other buildings were demolished, and over 400 needed repairs. 83% of the buildings in Northern Ireland were damaged that were occupied by Catholics. Between July and September, 1,500 Catholics and 300 Protestant families were forced to flee their homes. The IRA, or the Irish Army, set up refugee camps in uh, in the Republic of Ireland near the border. Um, and nationalists initially welcomed the British Army as they did not trust the URC. So the British Army knew not to trust the URC, but they also kind of didn't trust the IRA. So if you look here, here's some of the devastation that was wrought um, on the people. You can see several car bombings. Yeah, several car bombings. Men openly carried weapons in the streets. Um, Children fighting. Demolished buildings. You know, this picture here on the right-hand corner of the street was taken, I believe, in 1992. But you can see some of the graffiti. The one that didn't load up here was a Unionist party. So it said it lasted from 1966 to 1998, maybe. Um, there were a total of 1,800 140 casualties, possibly all the way up to 1935. Um, Total dead was about 3,500 plus, injured 47,000 plus. Casualties around 50,000 men, women, and children. So the question is, has things been settled with the Troubles? Are the Troubles over? It supposedly ended in 1998. But I just did a quick search of the BBC, and you can see here, June of 2019, a car bomb, a golf club car bomb, was found, and the IRA said they claimed to be the ones behind the attack. So, is it over? No. Tensions still brew. We will probably see flare-ups again. And it's all because of the government of England trying to mandate government or mandate a religion. And that's the reason why in our country we have a separation of church and state. All right.